assumption that it's a human's fault.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. What have you been up to this week, Donald?
Been just doing a lot. Well, actually, since we're recording right now, I guess I should do the intro really quick.
Right.
Ha! Yeah. What's going on, everybody? This is the General Geekery podcast, the podcast where we geek out about everything and anything, or just whatever comes to mind, whichever we feel like. As always, I'm Donald Kaczynski with a little bit of a sickness, but
the plague.
I'm still kicking. You ain't killing me yet. And with me, as always, is the always awesome Hannah Kubiak.
Hello. Yes, it's good to be here on Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's right, it is. We are recording this on Friday the 13th. That's right.
Yep. Yeah.
The most devilish of days. So good, so good. So, now that enough time has passed and the show has been ongoing and multiple things have been happening, I want to talk about a recent show that of a theater company you and I are both a part of, which also will bring to our topic today.
Yes.
Today, for the first time for a full episode, we're going to be talking about Shakespeare.
Woohoo!
The wonderful bard himself, good old William Shakespeare.
You know what? Sometime one of us should build a D&D character that is, his name is Bill, and he's Bill the Bard.
Why haven't I thought of this yet?
I don't know.
Damn it!
I don't know. I'm gonna do it.
We'll figure this out.
He'll be called Bill the Bard.
Well, what class would he be though?
He'd be a bard.
No. Oh, damn it! I meant to say what race.
Probably a human.
Yeah. Oh man, I messed that up so bad. I'm off my game, guys. But the reason we wanted to talk about Shakespeare is that our good friends over at Voices Sound Repertory, as of the recording of this podcast, they're going into their second weekend for their season 4 opener, Henry V. Which will have closed by the time this episode is released. But still, I wanted to talk about it because it's really good, really, really, really good. It's a strong cast. They brought a lot of their heavy hitters, a lot of their best that have been in shows past.
All 3 of their founders are involved in this show.
Yep. 2 of the founders are in the show. One of them was the title character of Henry V, and the third founder, Alec Lockman. Shout out to you, Alec. Muchas gracias, amigo.
Hell yeah, brother.
He was the one who directed the show.
Oh yeah.
And a bunch of other people we know and love had a thing of it. Actually, a few people from the show that Hannah directed last year that I helped be a part of, they were also in the production as well.
That's right. Thomas. I think we mentioned Thomas in like every single episode.
He's a wonderful human being, okay?
I know.
Oh my god.
Man. I think last night I had a dream that he was mad at me.
Oh no.
Or he was disappointed, more like. I was like, I'm so sorry I disappointed you, Thomas.
I can't picture him being mad.
No, me neither.
I can't picture him being mad.
Even though he always plays like really angry characters. Like his character in Henry is this raging warrior. Basically think Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
Oh yes, and the rage of war.
Oh yeah, he was totally pulling off that voice, and I want to say, I want that. That spear that he was swinging around, that double-sided spear. Yeah. I want that spear.
Yeah.
I want that spear. I am such a nut for weapons and everything, and I want that spear.
There's mighty work being done at the bridge. The general is a brave man. Oh man, and the mohawk just makes it so much better.
Oh my god, yes. I'm glad
he asked me if he could do that months before the show even started. Like as soon as he was cast, he was like, "Could I have a mohawk?" I said, "Sure, yeah. Like if you're up to that, go ahead."
I'm glad he took that decision. Oh, and another thing about the show, our great, awesome Hannah Kubiak was the costume designer for the show.
Me?
Yes, you. You were the costume designer for the show.
I was, yeah. So it was great. I really enjoyed it from from doing renderings to the very end. It was a sort of like a Fallout kind of theme, I suppose. It was...
Yeah, because from what I read in the program, it was like set in like a post-apocalyptic...
Yeah, post-apocalypse, basically where... Well, last year we did Macbeth in the same universe.
Right.
And that was sort of like the blast just went off and we are scrambling to get the pieces together and build kingdoms again. And then Henry V is like a little bit further after the apocalypse when we've built our kingdoms now and we're not so much salvaging things and wearing like street signs as armor or anything, but we've sort of got our forages working again and our manufacturing, and we're building stuff again.
I'm telling you, Voices Found is trying to create their own universe. They're trying to create their own Shakespeare universe.
Yeah, it actually, yes.
And Alec directed both of those shows, didn't
he? Yes. And then I think Coriolanus, which Andy Montano directed a while back, was kind of in the same universe as well.
I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't put it past them to have that same kind of universe.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely sort of becoming thematic. And Titus also was kind of like that, where it was sort of like it was set in sort of this ruins, but it was more like after a war when they're rebuilding stuff. Like there was building materials, and there was the pit that a bunch of the brothers get thrown down into was actually like a descent into another area of the architecture that was being built, like a lower level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I really wanted to have a scaffolding be part of the stuff, but we couldn't pull it off.
I know you try to fight for that so hard,
I
but
did. It was just the budget stuff.
Yeah, would have been a great idea though.
Oh yeah,
would have been a great idea.
Yeah.
But
oh man,
I'm glad the show that we got out of Titus for that one.
Oh, it was so good with like the plastic hanging for like the construction area.
Oh yeah,
and, like the kill room.
That is one. Oh man, so
good.
Okay, we'll get back on to Henry V for a second, but just to talk about this because we're such nerds of Shakespeare. Last year, and we mentioned this in like the first episode of the podcast. Me and Hannah, Hannah was the one who directed this show, and I was her assistant director as well as being a few of the characters in the show.
Yep.
For the season 3 opening for Voices Found, Hannah directed Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus. And
my favorite.
And for those not familiar with Titus...
Call me a sicko, but it's my favorite.
And for those not familiar with Titus Andronicus, I would have to say it's probably one of the most bloody of Shakespeare's?
It is Shakespeare's most bloody of tragedies, it has been said to be.
Yeah, it's been one of the most bloodiest of tragedies because of like how much death there is, body mutilation, things like that.
Yeah.
One of the characters is assaulted.
Yeah.
And has her tongue cut out.
Yeah, she's assaulted, her tongue's cut off, her hand's chopped off so she can't say who did it. And there's this scene where one of her family members finds her in the woods just after this happened, and there's just blood and
everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of people. I read about this one production of Titus where basically the only thing they talked about in the review of it was how many audience members passed out from the gore of it. And I had that in mind when I was directing it. I didn't want it to be like that because that's not what I was going for. I was more like going for sort of the sins of the father trickle down and like being focused on revenge and hatred and racism and all that. It just sort of perpetuates itself if that's what you teach your children, unless you find a better way and break the cycle.
Was ever such a being half so barbarous?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. That pretty much exemplifies that. And and
it's making me sad just thinking about it.
And I ended up being one of the people that did the assaulting and the cutting of the hands and
right.
And I was one of the two brothers that it happened, and they got their comeuppance in probably one of the most jarring scenes I think Voices Found ever put on, which was the kill room scene. Oh, yes. Basically, where Titus Andronicus kidnaps the brothers. We're tied down onto this giant table. It's almost, you described it as being something out of the show Dexter.
It's like Dexter's Kill Room, yeah. They were both tied down on this basically like workshop table, at a construction site. They were strapped down to it. There was plastic hanging all over the walls.
Our heads were upside down, so we were almost constantly disoriented. Yep. Our mouths were gagged. My character was freaking the fuck out. Mm-hmm. And
crying like a baby.
I was the one that I was the one that was going crazy and started bawling once I had the knife to my throat. Mm-hmm. Which I played it up like the entire show. Like I always saw Chiron, which was my character. He was always like a little bit of a coward, but it was his family's death which drove him further down there, and was like, any means necessary. It's just so long as I'm not in the front line.
Yep. Yeah.
That was how I played it.
Kind of a skulking character. Yep. And oh man, I love that. I loved that scene so much.
So good.
So good. It was just so satisfying.
Yeah, you want to talk about satisfying scenes that are kind of hard to pull off sometimes. To lead this back into Henry V.
Oh yes, let's talk about current events.
Yeah, current events.
Let's stop nostalgia.
One of my favorite moments in Henry V that's not fight-esque, not bloody, not all the things. I think you know the scene that I'm going to talk about.
I do. Yes.
I'll take a guess.
Oh, is it the Harfleur where he's asking them to surrender?
That's second.
Okay.
I was going to talk about the French lesson scene.
Oh, yes. Yes. The hand, the nails.
The hands, the nails, the fingers.
The fingers.
The bilbo.
The bilbo.
The bilbo. Ilbo. So for those who don't know what the hell we're talking about, so in Henry V, there's a scene where in France, the woman who would eventually marry Henry V in actual events,
in history?
Yeah.
Kate,
thank you. I keep forgetting that name off the top of my head. She's receiving an English lesson from her tutor, which normally is played by a woman.
Yeah,
Alice. Alice, the mistress in waiting. But this time they decided to have our boy Thomas do double duty and be Alice the tutor, which I was like, this is interesting. This is
so his character, he was Al, and he was this he was a hulking, big, imposing French guy with this giant
hammer like lance,
giant sledgehammer that was made out of a pipe with concrete on the end, kind of like he had just sort of been walking around in the apocalypse and saw this street sign and just pulled it out of the concrete, and a chunk of concrete came with it. So
that's some Resident Evil stuff right there, guys. Man. That's some Resident Evil shit.
Yeah. So just this big guy with this hammer that he constantly has by him, because he's basically her bodyguard.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, just from what I've seen from the show being put on, like, one of the hardest scenes to do in Shakespeare is this scene, because the entire scene is basically French.
It's all French.
And you have to make the audience understand what the hell you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And
you have to have a good French accent.
You have to have a good French accent. You need to say the language fluently enough. Mm-hmm. Even if you're not familiar with it, you have to sell the fact that you're having a full-on actual conversation, that you've been known this language forever. Mm-hmm. And those two pulled it off beautifully.
I think they did. Yes.
I've seen that scene done at when I was at Shakes and Co. We got to see a performance of their production of Henry V.
Oh.
And I'm not knocking against that show, but it's just while that scene was funny, they were like a lot of the scenes were mostly stationary, which is kind of hard to do, and I think that's where Voices Found really excels at. Like, we put so much like energy into all of these scenes because we're the space we normally perform in is very, very small.
It's the size of this room, actually.
Yeah, about the size of the room that we're recording in right now is basically the entire play space of the stage. Yep. So when you have about 6 people on stage doing the entire Battle of Agincourt, it can be a little scary.
Yeah, I think one of the reviewers described it as sort of like like clockwork. Like if one thing goes off, it'll throw off the rest of it.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was exactly like that. It was the perpetual motion of a clock, like...
Yeah.
And yeah, I was sitting front row opening night when I was watching this show, and one of my first worries, like, during the entire battle, I'm like, that is a lot of bodies on stage. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. Please, for the love of God, don't hit each other in the back of the heads.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to say that you were afraid that you were going to get impaled, because...
Oh, no, I know. I know my distance. I know
Okay,
I know my distance when it comes to weapons and stuff like that. But at the same time, I worry more about, like, I was so immersed that I was more worried about, like, in the back of my mind, like, as a theater professional myself, I was worried about the safety. But but I know the first thing that Voices Found excels a lot at is fight choreography and doing it safely.
Yep.
Like, they hammer that in hard.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said horde, but...
Horde! They
But,
hammer it in hard.
oh, indeed. Indeed.
I've always felt safe doing violence on stage. I performed violence!
Yeah!
I always feel safe when I'm doing violence on stage with this company. Yeah, and the fight choreographer and fight captain is actually in the cast as well, Connor Blankenship. Yeah.
He does some great fight choreo.
Yeah, it's pretty good. He has so much training.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great. And you were talking about energy before.
Yeah.
Just it was I was there opening night, actually.
Yeah, you and me were both there. You were
there too. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I just said I was there. You served me my beer.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
You were working bar that night.
I was working bar, and I was also like running back to see if anybody needed costumes fixed, like working double duty. Oh man.
Kudos to you. You are.
I have a funny behind the scenes story about costumes in a minute.
Okay.
I'll put my balloon there.
All right. I'm holding on to the balloon.
Okay.
This is Voices Found stuff happening right now.
The energy that the show starts with a prologue, which is usually delivered by one person.
Oh, for a muse of fire.
Oh, for a muse of fire. But what happened in this production was that the whole cast walked on, and they were kind of just wearing street clothes, and they had like their backpacks and stuff, and they got into the space, and they were just sort of like chatting and stretching, kind of like, actors who are about to do a show. And
that threw me for a loop, because
Yeah.
I thought like they were immediately just going to go on and start doing all this, but then
Yeah.
they're talking, and I'm like, this is like everybody like just doing a small meet and greet before a rehearsal.
Oh yeah.
That's what that reminded me of.
Yeah, and then one actor in the middle stands up suddenly and says, "Oh, for a muse of fire," and he starts to talk, and then somebody else says something else, where he says, "Then would warlike Harry," and I like pointed to the guy who was playing Henry, and he like stood up like, "Oh yes, I'm the king."
Yes,
now.
that was such a great moment.
I get to play the king today. Cool, and all this stuff, and it just animated those scenes to see all these people do it at the same time, and just the energy came there, and it was fun as well. Like they walked in, and I was like, because I know most of them as well, and I was sitting there watching, and I was like, oh, I'm so proud of them. They look like they're having so much fun. Like, oh, I feel like I'm part of a family. It felt kind of like, being part of the troupe almost.
Indeed. I love that decision to make like every single cast member the entire chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, like the chorus throughout the entire show has to narrate every single thing, and if it's just one person like doing the entire thing, unless the person has like a strong enough presence and engagement with the crowd, the chorus can drag on.
It can, yeah.
And I say that I say that with a grain of salt, because I love for a muse of fire speech so much. Mm-hmm. Like I love that speech with a passion, but at the same time, even I have to admit, it could be a little rough.
Yeah. And keep holding that balloon.
Holding it.
So the scene that really surprised and delighted me was the scene where they conquer the first town, the town of Harfleur.
Yeah.
There's a battle beforehand, and then they call a parley.
Right.
Parley. That would be the French.
Yes.
And when I read Henry V, I guess because I grew up on Monty Python and their French people are just bizarre, I always imagined this scene as Henry coming up to a big wall and the little French guy looking over like, hello, who is it?
Yes,
and I always imagined him like yelling up to this thing like, and like do you want to submit and avoid that we are going to kill your old men and defile the locks of your daughters and spit your naked infants on pikes and stuff. And I always imagined him like screaming this up at him, like threatening him, like, what say you?
And then the Frenchman responds just he does in Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
It's like, I fart in your general direction.
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries.
Elderberries. Yeah, but no, this scene was completely different than I thought because they came in. It was Henry and a couple of his soldiers who were standing guard, and then this French representative and a couple of her soldiers, and they put their weapons down and they knelt in the middle of the stage, and he was talking to her really basically kind of like, please don't make me do this.
That was strong stuff.
Like, just surrender now because I can control my men right now, but if you don't submit, they're going to do things that I don't necessarily want them to do. In the heat of battle, in the heat of conquering, they're going to kill your defenseless old men. They're going to take your daughters for themselves. They're going to murder your babies, and I don't want to see that happen. So just surrender now because it's going to happen, and we're going to own this city, but we'd rather not kill all of you to do it. And
the way that Jake Thompson, who plays the lead character of Henry, just delivered that with such an elegance, such an understanding, but still he spoke like a gentleman, but he had that underlying threat of just say the word, I push this button, and everything goes to hell.
I let loose the dogs, basically.
Indeed.
It's like, it's up to you. Yeah.
Like, that moment gave me chills.
Oh, yeah, me too. Because I never imagined that scene like that. And it sort of... And he also, when they conquer the... when they win the battle at Agincourt, and he said... Oh, no, it was after Harfleur still.
Right.
And he said, use mercy to them all, and stuff. It's like, I don't want to kill and destroy and pillage and make war. I just want what is mine by right through my lineage, you know.
Exactly. He doesn't want any more than what he knows he deserves. He's not asking for more.
Exactly.
He's not asking for levy over it. He knows he knows what he deserves. He knows what he's entitled to.
Yeah.
He's just taking that and that's it.
He's not greedy, and he they set up terms in the end whereby sort of like their kingdoms joined into one with Kate and Henry, and so nice.
It's a moment of selflessness that's not really often portrayed like a lot, and that's kind of like a lesson that needs to be like shown for like a lot of people. It's like, yeah, like, I know you've been wronged and things like that, but but when the time comes when they get their comeuppance and you get what you deserve, don't push for more. There's no reason to.
Yeah.
You do not respond with greed when you have been patient and righteous and seen justice through to the end. Yeah. Well, in your own eyes, basically. Because Henry V is just like, there's no right or wrong side. Henry's just the protagonist.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly. Yeah, and what did you think of the Oh, you know what? Let me do my balloon, since we were kind of talking seriously, and this is kind of funny.
Hand the balloon back.
Okay. I hope this actress doesn't mind. I don't see why she would. But there's this. So I was the costume designer for this show, and we did kind of we made a stark difference sort of between the English and the French. We had basically, I started out with 2 color palettes. I had the English are all reds and browns, and they're more rugged, more like Mad Max apocalypse people.
Right.
They're kind of dirty, and they're kind of like, like we will conquer, and just like rough and tumble, kind of like the band of brothers, basically, where the king is just as raggedy as the rest of them most of the time. He had a really sick coat that he wore, but...
Raggedy Man.
Yeah, so he was like one of them, one of the people. Mm-hmm. And then there was the French, where they were all dressed in, like, in royal blue and black and gray, and they were all very, very...
Pompous.
Very pompous and hoity-toity, and they all had their cigarettes, and they all were, very, very proper.
I love the fact that one of the first French people that came in, not only did she have the cigarette, but she also had, like, the cigarette, like, holder that, like, Cruella de Vil has in 101 Dalmatians. I'm like, that's perfect!
Cigarette holder, yeah.
I love that idea.
And, so there was this difference between them. That was kind of just the idea we had. So the French were more like the people from the capital in the Hunger Games, kind of.
Right.
And so two different kinds of apocalypses. And so, as I said, I'm at the show pretty much every night because I'm the costume designer, and also I work at the theater, so I'll like serve drinks before the show, and then after the show I'll kind of just go and hang out in the hallways. Thank God
the show does not have an intermission.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think that would be a more than you could bear.
Oh no, I could do it.
True, but I worry.
But so people would come to me with stuff, and they'd be like, oh, I broke the strap of my armor. Can you fix it really quick? And like we had one actor who, so I made them these pauldrons and wrist guards out of is it pronounced Eva foam or EVA? Because it's all caps. The cosplay foam.
I want to say it's Eva foam.
Eva foam. So I made them out of Eva foam, and there was one guy who his strap, it came off, and I said, you have a fight in a couple of minutes, right? He's like, yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. Here's what I'm gonna do. And so basically, what I did was I put the strap back onto the Eva foam, and I used a binder clip and pinched it on there, and then took the little metal clips off of it. So it was just like the black bit of the thing. And then I was like, okay, take that and give it a tug and see if it'll stay. And so he was like, he's like, I think it should be fine. So we put it on and like did this fight, and then I completely forgot about it. Like I didn't even notice he had a binder clip on him at the time. so just like random stuff like that, where you're like, if you knew how much of a costume is just held together by office supplies and random junk that I found during a show. This one girl... I
feel like that's like one of the advantages of minimalistic setting and design, though.
If something goes wrong, it's fine. Like when I did costumes for Macbeth, if something got dirty, you're just like, just leave it.
Yeah, almost kind of like how it was for Titus Andronicus, too, because we used so much fake blood in the show and everything like that, and, like, it never truly came off, but it added to the aesthetic and everything, because we were in such a bloody, warlike period.
Yeah. Or, in Macbeth, our Banquo had this huge trench coat. It was played by Brittany Hout. She had this huge trench coat, and Banquo would every night would get stabbed in the back, in the kidney.
Oof.
And so there was a blood pack for that, and it would go all over the trench coat. And I was like, well, I can't really wash it out, but every single night I would take the coat and I would put it outside, and I would just paint over it with some like gray paint that I made to look like mud. So it was literally layer upon layer of just like fake blood and paint and fake blood and paint and fake blood and paint every night.
Makes sense to me.
And if some of the blood was visible, it was fine because she was a warrior.
Exactly, adds aesthetic.
Yeah, but this is probably one of my favorite stories about wardrobe malfunctions in plays.
Oh God!
Was last week. One of our actresses plays two roles,
okay.
and she got done with a scene for one role where she was wearing a dress and like a skirt, and she came back to me. And she was like, I can't get my skirt off. I have to go on in a little bit. I'm like,
oh God.
And I'm like, okay, when do you need to go on? And she's like, in the next scene. So I'm like, okay, come on, let's go. And we're like standing right back by where she was supposed to go on.
Right.
And she was putting on her costume for the next scene while I was like cutting this skirt off of her. And I took it away. And I was like, okay, go on stage. And I like ran away with the skirt. And I, like, safety pinned it up. on the part that I cut, and then I was like, okay, here you go. So put it because like the zipper was stuck or something.
Right.
So like, okay, you just have to safety pin it onto yourself now. It's fine. It's
wow.
just, like, ridiculous. She was like putting on her shirt and her coat and her pants and everything, and I was just there hovering by her like with scissors. I was like, okay, I'm gonna cut it off now. She like I felt like an EMT.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It's like quick, give me the scissors, stat.
Do you think people that put on like period pieces ever come across that right now where there's like, cut the fucker. Just take it off.
Just do it. Yeah. Or like, because back in the day, I feel like part of the way that women's clothing was designed back in the day was so that they couldn't put it on themselves.
You're probably right.
Because it all laces in the back.
Yeah.
And stuff, and you need to have a lady's maid who's going to help you out with that. And
yep.
so it's like, oh no, you can't go off anywhere on your own because you have to at least have your lady's maid with you. You know, it's like, then you can't just escape and go off on your own because how are you gonna change your clothes?
So many corsets.
It's the latest fashion in London.
Apparently, women in London don't know how to breathe.
It's the second Pirates of the Caribbean quote this episode. How are we doing for time, Don?
Oh, we're doing good. We're doing good. Oh. I figured this one was going to run a little long because we're talking so much about Shakespeare, but like Henry V, like was great, and I loved it.
Wait,
and like,
what did you think of the very end?
Oh,
they did the dance, and he started hacking up a lung.
It's a subtle foreshadowing of what was to come in Henry's life.
Because didn't he die of like the plague or something?
I'm pretty sure
2 years later.
I think so. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because normally, if I remember correctly, like how Henry V normally ends is that the chorus like narrates the epilogue about what happens after.
Right.
But Voices Found chose not to do it, which I was more than okay with. Like. And it was the small little hacking of the lung, and I'm like, that pretty much just that sells everything.
Yeah, because they're dancing, and you're like, oh, it's so sweet, and then they're about to walk off, and he starts like having this coughing fit, and then they go off stage, and he's like, no, everything's fine, and she's like, oh, okay, and then they leave, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, no.
Indeed. And I think that's like one of the advantages to like working in a small space like that is that you can sell so many subtleties like more than any overarching soliloquy or monologue could probably do.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of filler in the show was cut in order to make it for like a 90-minute runtime with no intermission, and it goes so seamlessly.
Yep.
And it's small little moments like that where you, in just a few seconds of emotion or an action, where you can sell what's happening. That's where I think like VFR really excels at. It's the small moments that add significance to the larger moments. Yeah.
They're really passionate about creating sort of empathetic works that are a little bit more understandable for modern audiences, and also just like casting actors and actresses in roles that maybe they wouldn't traditionally be cast in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I mean, I can count on like one hand like the amount of Shakespeare shows we had where the main character that was normally male has been played by a female. Titus Andronicus, Richard III.
Yeah. Were there any others? I don't think so.
I could have sworn there was more.
Well, Brittany was Banquo.
Well, we can count that. We can count that.
Yeah.
Because Banquo's a pretty integral cog in the wheel for that show.
Yeah. Oh man.
But yeah, it's just like so many.
And no, yeah, and women can do it as well. We're very versatile.
oh hell yeah! Like my opinion, I would rather go for the non-norm castings as opposed to like some of the normal ones. Like I love seeing diversity like that. Like honestly, I'm waiting for the day where we can do a Much Ado About Nothing where all of the genders are gender bent. I think
all switched.
I think that would be fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It would certainly. I don't know how it would play out, but I certainly think it would be a fun experience.
Speaking of gender bending and like disguises and things like that, I love thinking about the fact that Twelfth Night, the very first productions of it in Shakespeare's time, because all the actors were men.
Yep.
I like imagining that whoever it was who played Viola,
man,
had to play. It was most likely a young man playing a woman who disguises herself as a young man. So you're not playing a young man. You're playing. Yeah.
You're playing as a young woman who's disguising herself as a young man who's in love with a man, even though that
love with a man who is in love with someone else. Like,
but in real life, it's a young man trying to act like he's in love with another man. Who knows? Maybe they were in a relationship, and we just didn't understand.
Yeah. And I think about that sometimes, where I think, I wonder what Shakespeare would think to know that not only are women on stage now, but women play these male characters that he wrote. Like, my Titus was played by a woman.
Yes.
And
Maya was great.
And
killed it.
I have played a couple of men in Shakespeare. I played Holofernes at one time. As did you, I believe.
Oh, we have mentioned that before.
Yes, we have mentioned that here. That we were both Holofernes.
Yes, we have.
Yep. Did I mention that we both played Holofernes one time?
I think we have.
Yeah.
I think we have. Yeah.
Oh man. So fun.
Indeed. Oh. So, I have to ask you this question.
Okay, goodbye.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. So, of course we're we're headfirst into the works of Shakespeare. Like we read the Bard, we perform the workings of the Bard, we even teach it to others sometimes when others have questions about it.
Yeah.
So, but I have to ask, what was the work that really sold you on? What was the Shakespeare work that really sold you into? I love this. Not necessarily like the first one you ever read, or were forced to read, or whichever. But like, what was the one that sold you? As like, I love this.
Well, I would have to say that both of those things are the same. I think the first Shakespeare that I remember becoming acquainted with was Hamlet when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And now when I look back, most of the lines that I knew really well when I was a kid were from the first two scenes. So I don't know how much of it I actually read. I knew the story.
Right. It's probably like one of the three most famous stories of Shakespeare.
Yep, yeah. So Hamlet was my favorite play when I was 8 years old. The first play that I read all the way through in one sitting, could not put it down, was Titus Andronicus.
Okay, that would explain a lot.
Yeah, I had to read it for a Shakespeare class in college, and that was the first play we read. It was the first one on the list. Basically, I left the class and I had a couple of hours off, so I went to the library and sat down in one of those cubicles, and I opened it up and I said, well, I'll just read here for an hour and then I'll work on other stuff. 3 hours later. I finished the play and I think, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And yeah, that's just amazing. It had everything. It had all the horrible stuff, and it had all the good stuff as well. Like, I love a good family story. And I think that a family story is way more powerful and understandable than a love story, even. I
would agree with that, because I was first introduced I heard of Shakespeare like a lot through like my childhood and everything like that, but high school was my first time reading anything Shakespeare related. I had read some excerpts from Macbeth. The first full one that we had to read for I think it was like my sophomore year of English class in high school was Romeo and Juliet. Of course, that's the one that everybody goes to when they're not familiar with Shakespeare's works. Everyone knows Romeo and Juliet. And as part of it, the instructor made us watch the 1990s movie with Leonardo DiCaprio as Romeo.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in class and I'm watching this, and in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking in my mind, this is corny as shit. This is so corny. What is this? But then about a few years later, before I entered college, and I decided I was going to do acting as like a random thing, I decided, you know what? I'll just take a look at another one of Shakespeare's things just to see what's going on. I read Coriolanus, and I was really enthralled. I'd always thought like Shakespeare had always done like over romanticized shit and everything like that, and I read Coriolanus, and I'm like, this is really politically like. Yeah. I love words. Like I love when people are able to like use words in order to like win over people in arguments and things like that. One of my favorite monologues in all of Shakespeare is "You Common Cry of Curs" from Coriolanus. And a few years later, when the first time I got to see the show performed was when Tom Hiddleston did his.
What?
So okay, hold on.
Did you shake his hand?
No. I didn't get to see it live and in person. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I wish.
Is that the one where he was like hung upside down by his feet, and that was how he was executed?
Yeah. So about a year after that performance hit, and it was recorded by like National Theatre Live or something like that. The person who was in charge of one of the people in charge of the UWM library had recordings of all the different National Theatre Live performances. So it was Tom Hiddleston as Tom Hiddleston as Coriolanus, David Tennant and Catherine Tate being Much Ado About Nothing.
Okay.
David Morrissey as Macbeth. All of that.
Oh
and I also think James Earl Jones as Othello, but
no way.
I can neither confirm nor deny that one. The Hiddleston one was the one that I saw, and I'm watching all of this, and and besides a little random note of me being taken out for a minute, I'm like, oh wait, that's the actor who played Dean Thomas in Harry Potter. He's in this too. Interesting. But other than that, I saw it for the first time, and it was in a giant like black box like theater, and everybody's just climbing around, running around, and Hiddleston did the common cry of Curs. I'm like, I was right to follow this path. This is amazing. So it was Coriolanus that really started it for me.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome.
And then the first Shakespeare show I was ever a part of was, of course, Love's Labour's Lost.
Woohoo! Yep, same here.
Oh, the Holofernes, the learned people!
The mighty, the nine worthy!
Oh, man.
When I think of the number 9 now, it's just the mighty 9 is stuck in my head.
Indeed. As much I loved being a part of that show, but all right, you want to hear like a really like crazy theater story from me?
I mean, sure.
Well, it's related to Shakespeare and everything like that, but during our school's production of Love's Labour's Lost, it was like the third to last performance we were doing. We were in the middle of intermission, and we were all getting ready for like prop stuff in order for like the big like performance scene at the end of the show. I got a message from my cousin, who I've always treated like a little sister, and she was trying to call me and things like that because her dad died.
Okay.
Just then. And so I'm like, well, fuck. I can't really do anything right now. I have to get on stage. So throughout the rest of that entire show, like I was holding so much back because I'm trying to keep myself from absolutely exploding. And everybody's like, Donald, are you okay? And I'm like, I'll tell you after the show. I can't really say anything right now since we're on stage.
Oh gosh, since we're on stage.
Yeah, I like, and the thing is, like with the stage where we had. When we did like the festival thing and everything like that, for all of us, in order to wait for us to go on to perform our respective things, and all of the people mock us and laugh at us and everything like that, there was a tent that we had set up in the background that we had to wait under in order to come out, and I'm like, I can't do anything. I just go in there, just go for it. and my backlash was just so ferocious that night. The director literally came into the room afterwards. He's like, are you okay? I've never seen you do that. I'm like, okay, I gotta tell you, like, literally what happened. I did not intend for this. I meant for my phone to be off, but unfortunately this happened. Yeah.
Oh
so that was probably, like, one of my toughest moments on stage. And it just had to be a show about Shakespeare. And it had to be one of the comedies, too. So I'm like, how do I play this off?
Yeah. How do you? Yeah.
Well, luckily the people who were jabbing me were good sports about it. They knew how to work around it, so thank God for that. Alec Lockman was one of them.
Really?
Yeah, he was one.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, I forget how long you all have known each other before I showed up.
Well, I mean, we have that connection, but you're also part of the family too. So, yay, extended Shakespeare families!
Woohoo! Oh man, I'm trying to think. What was it? There was something to do with Shakespeare. It was a funny story about something that happened.
Was it about nothing, though?
Nothing. No, it wasn't about...
It was not much ado about nothing.
It was not much ado about nothing.
Sorry, I had to make that joke. I'll see myself out. Good night, everybody!
Goodbye. Get out of here. You're like, this is my house!
I'm gonna just hide underneath the table.
Yep.
Can you see me? Oh, wait, you still can't see me. This is a glass table. Shit.
Oh, I remember what it was. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to stand to tell you about it.
Oh, okay, hold on.
Wait,
Hold on. I'm gonna. Hannah's standing up right now. I'm gonna bring the mic up a little bit.
Speaking of theater things and doing stuff off stage, when I was in college, we had a theater that we basically, there were curtains and there was wings, and people would be waiting in the wings to go on.
Okay.
And while you were on stage, if you happened to glance into the wing, you would probably see one of your fellow actors just standing there staring at you, like wiggling their hips like this. They just do that. They just sort of like give you sort of like the kid from The Omen stare.
Oh,
like straight or like deadpan, and just like work their hips.
Oh my God.
And so you had to try not to look off into the wings, or if you did and it was a serious scene, you would be, in trouble because it was just so funny.
We almost had a similar setup like that in my main stage theater. I was in a musical when somebody tried to pull that shit, but the director was behind the stage and he dragged him off. I'm like, well, that freshman ain't gonna make it.
Oh man.
And
we should do a whole episode about theater stories.
Oh yeah,
I've got a couple.
Absolutely. We need to bring more people on for that, because I feel like just you and me aren't enough for hilarity and
no, yeah, I don't have enough for that.
Indeed.
Yeah. Oh, we should have Kyle Connor come and tell his story about Hamlet.
Oh, I love his stories.
Oh my gosh.
So So to wrap this up, I'm just gonna one last question about all of Shakespeare, just to ask you.
Sure.
Is there one Shakespeare show that you have not done that strike that, reverse it. Is there a Shakespeare show that you have not done that you would like to either act in, direct, or just plain simple work on? Or if there's any role that you want to do.
Any role?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And I know this question gets asked around a lot amongst all of us that do a lot of Shakespeare.
Yeah. Let me think.
Especially those who are as young as we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh man. I would love to be involved in... I would have to say, I think Othello.
Okay.
That's been on my mind since college. This friend of mine and I did the Amelia Desdemona scene for an acting class, and the one where she sings the Willow song,
yep,
and stuff, and it was so great. And I've had that bug ever since. I'm like, I want to be in this show. And also, just as you probably know from my directing Titus Andronicus, I have a real a lot of beef with racists.
Oh, yeah.
I hate it. And,
you say that, and yet you were also in Merchant of Verona.
Merchant of Venice?
Merchant of Venice. Why did I say Verona? I'm an idiot.
Yep, I was in Merchant of Venice, and I played probably the worst of the racists. He was just unashamedly...
You came in with a southern accent.
That wasn't even the character who was racist, though.
I know, but
that guy was just a weirdo.
Yeah, that guy was a weirdo, but good God, like I know Othello has some pretty racy dialogue, racist dialogue in it, but
unlock my treasure here.
I kind of want to. I don't. Oh man,
just channel all the creeps I've ever met. Gosh.
So but who in that? But who in that scene were you? Were you Amelia?
I was Desdemona.
Oh, you were Desdemona. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, yeah.
So you would want to try Desdemona?
I would want to try that, yeah.
That would be interesting.
I know.
I would actually love to see that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah. They're doing Othello with the Mad Rogues, but I'm doing Elephant Man already. So I was just like, nope, not going to do that.
Yeah, missed opportunities and all that.
I would play anyone in that play, though, to be honest. I've always wanted to see Othello with a female Iago, actually.
Oh, that would be fun.
Where she's had, where maybe she's mad because she got spurned or something. Well, I know that Iago has a wife, Amelia, of course. But wouldn't that be interesting? It could be almost this sort of...
If Iago was female and Amelia was...
If like Iago...
Well, Amelia could be either one. Though.
Yeah, also, yeah, because like if Iago and Amelia are two women who are together, maybe the fact that, you know how Iago says like that Othello has done my office, like maybe... had a little dalliance with Amelia. Maybe even Iago as a woman is just like jealous, not only because he chose Amelia, but also just like, why didn't he choose me? Like that would be, I wish you'd chosen me. And it could be kind of like this love-hate thing. Where like, you spurned me, you know?
That would be an interesting... That would be interesting.
I don't know.
I kind of want to see that come to fruition now.
Yeah, okay. Let's do it.
Hell yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Othello. What about you? What would you want to be in?
Well, I have two. One comedy, one not comedy. Mm-hmm. I want to do Much Ado About Nothing so bad. Like it's one of my favorite comedies that that I started with Shakespeare. It holds a special place in my heart. And it was actually like one of the first monologues that I ever used from Shakespeare was Benedict's "I do so much wonder," because I love that monologue to death. Because it's just like, you're a fool, but I can understand why you want that. But at the same time, why do you have such high expectations?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, and something I'd want to direct is Richard II.
Ooh. That was the one that I was going to say. I would love to take a shot at Richard II.
I love that play.
I would love to take a shot at Richard II.
Yeah. Oh, man. We could have a whole talk about Richard II. Let's not.
Yeah,
Don't even say anything about it.
That'll be for another time.
That'll be for another.
There will probably be more Shakespeare talks in the future. Just fair warning, folks. Oh man, but we're running on an hour. I think we got a lot out.
Holy crap!
Yeah, well, we were talking about Shakespeare. It's one of our passions. It's what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think we can end the Shakespeare discussion for here today. We'll probably bring it back up in another episode because we love it so much.
Absolutely, we've only skimmed the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. But just to help close off. Congrats again to Voices Found Repertory in their recent production of Henry V. It was magnificent. Yeah. Congrats to Alec Lockman, Andy Montano, Jake Thompson for creating Voices Found and keeping it going for another four seasons.
Yep.
Here's to another 4 plus more in the future because you do such great work and you created such a great energetic space that is amazing for Milwaukee theater and from a fellow Shakespeare artist and one of your from a friend of yours. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so proud of them all. There was a reviewer who wrote that this company is raising the bar for Shakespeare in the Milwaukee area.
We didn't even... That's not how... I don't think that's how... That was even the thing. They wanted to create more of an opportunity for younger artists and look at what it's become now.
It's pretty great.
They've become probably one of the most talked about young companies in all of Milwaukee right now.
It's pretty great.
And I hope we can keep that energy going forward.
Absolutely, yeah. All right. Well, as always, you can find me on Monday nights, 7:30 Central Time at twitch.tv/Loaded Dice Adventures, where myself and my party mates in Dungeons and Dragons try to discover the mysteries of the land of Avenaria. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Pythian Legume.
Yep, indeed. And you can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and as well as on Twitch at RyuzakiMK7. Also, you can follow the General Geekery podcast on Facebook at General Geekery Podcast. Should probably get us an shared Instagram or Twitter account.
Oh my gosh,
soon.
Yes. I can take that. Or you can. You do all the other stuff, so maybe I should do something other than show up here every other week.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We'll get that sorted out.
Man, yeah.
And don't forget, guys. Why am I saying don't forget? Why am I saying that again? Why? I don't know. I'm losing my mind right now. But thank you guys again for listening. This has been episode 7 of the General Geekery podcast. Mm-hmm. And in the words of no, I can't even do in the words of William Shakespeare, but whichever. Read your Shakespeare, support local theater, and as always, keep your geek on.
Keep your geek on.
Keepeth thine geekery.